Well, hello there and welcome to this revision video for Living Under Nazi Rule, question 8 and 9. So in terms of how to answer Living Under Nazi Rule, question 8 or 9, firstly, just be aware you will have a choice of two questions, so it will be question 8 or 9. These are 18-mark questions. So in order to be successful on this question, make sure you start off by decoding the question. So be really clear on what the question is asking you to do. Make sure you make the links back to the question in your answer. Make a very quick plan. You're looking for 4 developed arguments with a degree of balance. You need to have 4 well-explained paragraphs. Each paragraph should include detailed and specific knowledge, analysis and explanation, and links back to the question. And you're going to finish with a conclusion, which we call a clinching argument. The essay question is worth 18 marks, and you want to spend about 25 minutes on it in the exam. So in terms of what you need to do, you can see the mark scheme there. You need to have a balanced answer to get beyond 12 out of 18 marks. You need to have at least one agree paragraph and at least one disagree paragraph in terms of your 4 arguments. So we're going to have a look at this question just to show you how to answer the question. 8 or 9, 18-mark question. It's the same type of exam technique as you would use for Making America and People's Health. So this 18-mark essay question is: terror was more important than propaganda in controlling people in Nazi Germany between 1933 and 1939. How far do you agree with this view? Give reasons for your answer. So what you need to do is you need to make sure you're decoding the exam question. So thinking about the important parts of the question, highlight the actual question or underline it as I've exemplified here. So the first thing is the was more important tells you that this is a causation focus, and they want you to they're actually giving you a couple of key causes to look at here: terror and propaganda. The question is intrinsically about why the Nazis were able to control people in Nazi Germany between 1933 and 1939. Remember that time periods are really crucial, so you must stay within 1933 and 1939. So always highlight time periods given in questions, so you stay within those. So the question tells you to write about terror and propaganda as key factors, and in fact you could make a couple of key arguments about terror, looking at different aspects of terror, and similarly with propaganda you can have a couple of different arguments with propaganda, and that's why dividing your work up into paragraphs is going to be really important. The how far do you agree? It means they want you to look at other factors, but in this case it's comparing terror and propaganda. You can look at some other reasons for why people were controlled in Nazi Germany, but you need to make sure you're writing about both terror and propaganda. Give reasons. You need to use knowledge and analysis to have a developed argument. Okay, so you're going to make a quick plan, which helps you to focus on the question and organize your answer, and it helps your initial thinking. And just a reminder that a developed argument means you've got specific and relevant knowledge. You analyze using relevant second-order concepts and historical language, and you make clear links back to the question, such as this shows that terror was an important factor because. So at the end of each paragraph, you want to be linking back to the question to make sure you stay really, really focused and tight on the actual question that's being asked. So this is an example plan. In this one that we're going to look at, we're going to find a couple of key arguments around the idea of terror. We're going to look at the idea of the Gestapo and the block wardens, and we're also going to look at the sort of legal system and concentration camp sites. We can make 2 distinct arguments, both around terror. We're also going to look at a couple of arguments to disagree, one around the propaganda and the idea of Hitler as the cult of the Führer, and we could also look at the fact that the Nazis used technology within their propaganda, so the radio and films, that element of thing as well. And then a conclusion is the clinching argument. Okay, so we just run through in terms of how to approach this question. You have a look at the checklist there, include information for the correct time period. You need to include precise and relevant knowledge, link to the correct second order concept. This one's about causation. Include 4 key arguments with a degree of balance, and finish with a clinching argument where you explain and justify your final opinion. You want to try and get some causation language in, and what we've done is on this example paragraph we've highlighted where we've got that causation language in. Now that causation language language, and that analytical language will help you to really make sure you're answering the question and giving your own opinion, which is really important to get some of the higher marks for this question. So let's just read the example paragraph and just note where the highlighted phrases use really good causation language. I agree that terror was the most important factor in controlling people. Firstly, the Nazis had a spy network overseen by the SD, spy network, Gestapo, secret police, and the SS black shirts to control people. This meant that they had ways to identify and arrest political opponents of the Nazi regime and spread fear. Consequently, between 1933 and 1939, about 225,000 Germans were imprisoned for political crimes and sent to concentration camps. In 1937, Himmler declared that guards could not be sent to jail for violence. This led to deaths going up in the camps. As a result, more people were placed in protective custody. This was an effective way in controlling people and exacerbated the fear they already had. The Nazis even had a system of block wardens to keep control of people, making it seem like Nazi spies were everywhere. Although there were relatively few members of the Gestapo, 15,000, people were incredibly fearful of being arrested. This sheer terror was influential because people were less likely to speak out and protest against the Nazis. This brought about people being reluctant to speak out, meaning that the Nazis were able to control people successfully through terror. Okay, so you can pause this and have a look at a full answer to this question if you find that useful. So the first paragraph we've already looked at. The second agree would still agree with the idea of terror, but would focus more on the legal system and concentration camps rather than the actual Gestapo themselves. The first disagree would focus on propaganda, but talk about the cult of the Führer. And the second disagree would focus on, again, on propaganda, but the idea that propaganda was everywhere in Nazi Germany due to the radio and things like film, for example. So one of the top tips there is that you can actually get a couple of different arguments around terror and a couple of different arguments around propaganda, but it's really important to separate those out into paragraphs so it's really clear how many key arguments you've actually got. So that would be a full answer to that question. So if you want to read the whole answer, just pause the video and read that for yourself. Okay, so you want to finish off a really good answer with a clinching argument, which should be clear, concise, and conclusive. There's some examples of good historical language to use in your clinching argument, and we'll just read an example clinching argument here. In the final analysis, I would agree that terror was more important than propaganda. Admittedly, propaganda contributed to some people being brainwashed by the Nazis, but equally, evidence around opposition suggests that many people were quietly opposed to the Nazis, and there was much private grumbling. In short, people in Germany were terrified to speak out due to the perceived power of the police state, especially the Gestapo. People in Germany said, quote, "You should speak like a flower," and say only good things about the Nazis. The sheer terror of being arrested and sent to a concentration camp dissuaded many people from speaking out, allowing the Nazis to gain control of people.